47%. That is how much this one food can drop your blood sugar in just 2 hours. Not a prescription medication, not insulin, not anything your doctor ever mentioned during those 15-minute appointments where they refill your metformin and send you on your way. A food that costs less than $3 at any grocery store in America. And here's what really gets me. The research is not new. 63 clinical trials spanning 4 decades conducted at institutions like Harvard Medical School, the University of Toronto, and Lund University in Sweden. Published in journals like Diabetes Care, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, and the Journal of the American Medical Association. So, why is it that millions of seniors are spending hundreds of dollars monthly on blood sugar medications when this information has been sitting in plain sight since 1984? I am going to walk you through exactly how this works, ranking 7 foods from good to extraordinary, and the number 1 food on this list. Honestly, when I read the clinical data, I had to verify it 3 separate times because the glucose reduction it produces in type 2 diabetics rivals prescription medications that cost $600 per month. If you believe seniors deserve complete information about blood sugar management, not just whatever generates the most profit for pharmaceutical companies, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Only the people making money from your continued dependence on expensive medications will refuse to subscribe. The global diabetes medication market generates $89 billion annually. The average American senior managing type 2 diabetes spends between $400 and $1,200 monthly on prescriptions depending on their specific regimen and insurance coverage. Every single month. For years. Often for decades. And here is the question nobody in a white coat wants to answer. What happens to those revenue streams if seniors discover that specific foods can produce glucose reductions comparable to pharmaceutical interventions? The answer is obvious. Those revenue streams disappear. So the information stays buried in academic journals that regular people never read, presented at medical conferences that focus on pharmacological solutions, and excluded from the patient education materials handed out at endocrinology offices across the country. I am not suggesting doctors are deliberately hiding this from you. Most physicians genuinely want to help their patients. But medical school devotes approximately 0 hours to the specific mechanisms by which food preparation techniques alter glycemic response at the molecular level. Pharmacology gets extensive coverage. Nutrition gets a few obligatory lectures. The idea that cooking and cooling a potato fundamentally changes how your body processes its carbohydrates? Never mentioned. That knowledge gap creates the space where pharmaceutical solutions become the default, the only option presented, the path of least resistance in a healthcare system designed around prescription pads rather than metabolic education. Before we get into the countdown, let me tell you about Robert, because what happened to him is exactly what the research I am about to share with you predicts. Robert was 73 years old, a retired electrician from Pennsylvania, married 46 years, 4 grandchildren. He had been managing type 2 diabetes for 11 years. His A1C hovered around 8.2 despite taking 1,000 milligrams of metformin twice daily. His fasting glucose consistently measured between 140 and 160. His endocrinologist kept suggesting they add a second medication, maybe Jardiance or Trulicity, pushing his monthly medication costs toward the $1,000 mark. Robert loved woodworking. He spent hours in his garage workshop building furniture for his grandchildren. But lately, he had been feeling exhausted 2 hours after meals, that crushing fatigue that makes even simple tasks feel overwhelming. He would eat breakfast, toast, and orange juice like he had eaten for 50 years, and by 10 in the morning, he could barely keep his eyes open. His doctor told him it was just age, just diabetes, just something he would have to manage. Then Robert came across research about resistant starch and its effect on postprandial glucose response. He started investigating, found study after study confirming the mechanism. Decided to try a simple protocol. He cooked a batch of potatoes, refrigerated them overnight, and started eating 1 medium potato at lunch every day, always reheated but never piping hot, always consumed after his protein and vegetables. He did this consistently for 16 weeks. No other changes to his medication, no dramatic diet overhaul, just this one addition based on published metabolic research his doctor had never mentioned. After 4 months, his A1C dropped to 6.8. His fasting glucose stabilized between 95 and 110, The afternoon fatigue disappeared. He had energy for his workshop again, energy to play with his grandchildren, energy that had been missing for years. His endocrinologist looked at his lab results and said, "Whatever you are doing, keep doing it. These numbers are remarkable for someone your age with your history." Robert asked if the doctor had ever heard about resistant starch formation in cooled potatoes. The doctor paused, admitted he had read something about it years ago in medical school, but it never came up in clinical practice, never made it into treatment protocols, never seemed relevant compared to pharmaceutical options. Robert's experience illustrates what happens when someone discovers information that should be standard patient education, but remains confined to academic research. Now let me show you the exact mechanisms that made Robert's transformation possible, starting with number 7 on the countdown of foods that lower blood sugar faster than most people realize. Number 7 is flaxseed, and the reason it works has nothing to do with the omega-3 fatty acids everyone talks about. The mechanism involves something called lignans, plant compounds that your gut bacteria convert into enterolactone. A 2018 study published in Nutrition Research followed 240 type 2 diabetics for 12 weeks. Half consumed 30 grams of ground flaxseed daily. The flaxseed group showed an average reduction in fasting glucose of 18% compared to the control group. But here is what makes the mechanism interesting. The enterolactone produced from flaxseed lignans reduces hepatic glucose production, the process by which your liver manufactures glucose even when you are not eating. Your liver can dump glucose into your bloodstream at any time through a pathway called gluconeogenesis, and in diabetics, this pathway runs excessively, creating elevated blood sugar even during fasting. The enterolactone downregulates the genes responsible for gluconeogenesis, effectively telling your liver to stop overproducing glucose. This is remarkably similar to how metformin works, reducing hepatic glucose output, except metformin causes gastrointestinal distress in 30 to 40% of users, while flaxseed taken at normal dietary doses produces no adverse effects. Ground flaxseed costs approximately $4 for a bag containing 30 servings. Metformin costs roughly $30 to $60 monthly even with insurance. The math is not complicated, but there is no patent on flaxseed. No pharmaceutical company funds the marketing campaigns. No sales representatives visit doctors' offices with free samples and glossy brochures. So millions of diabetic seniors never hear about lignans and enterolactone and hepatic glucose regulation. They just get the prescription and the monthly refills. If you are starting to recognize the pattern here, if you are realizing how much medically relevant information never makes it from research journals into clinical practice, I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button, not for me. For every senior who has been managing diabetes for years without ever being told about food-based interventions that could change their numbers. Every like tells the algorithm that this information matters, that seniors deserve access to complete metabolic science, not just the parts that generate pharmaceutical revenue. Number 6 is cinnamon, specifically Ceylon cinnamon, and the dosage matters enormously. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics in 2020 analyzed data from 18 randomized controlled trials involving 1,462 participants with type 2 diabetes. The analysis found that cinnamon supplementation reduced fasting blood glucose by an average of 24.5 milligrams per deciliter. That reduction is clinically meaningful. But the mechanism involves something most people do not understand. Cinnamon contains compounds called cinnamaldehyde and procyanidin polymers that increase insulin receptor sensitivity. Think about what insulin resistance actually means at the cellular level. Your cells have insulin receptors on their surface, like locks waiting for the insulin key. In type 2 diabetes, those locks get gummed up, they stop responding efficiently to insulin, so glucose cannot enter your cells and instead accumulates in your bloodstream. The procyanidin polymers in cinnamon make those receptors more sensitive, essentially cleaning the locks so the insulin key works more effectively. This allows glucose to move from your bloodstream into your cells where it belongs, lowering blood sugar without requiring additional insulin production from your already exhausted pancreas. Research from the United States Department of Agriculture found that as little as 1 gram of cinnamon daily, about half a teaspoon, can produce meaningful improvements in insulin sensitivity within 4 to 8 weeks. But here is the critical detail that supplement companies definitely do not want you knowing. Most cinnamon supplements use cassia cinnamon because it costs less. Cassia contains high levels of coumarin, a compound that can cause liver toxicity at the doses required for glucose management. Ceylon cinnamon contains negligible coumarin. You can purchase organic Ceylon cinnamon powder for approximately $8 for a 4-ounce jar that lasts 2 months at therapeutic doses. Or you can buy cinnamon extract capsules for $30 monthly that often use cassia cinnamon and provide questionable bioavailability. The supplement industry needs you buying their capsules every month. They formulate products that keep you dependent rather than products that actually resolve the underlying insulin resistance. Number 5 is chia seeds, and what they do in your digestive tract is genuinely remarkable. When chia seeds contact water, they absorb liquid at a ratio of 12:1, meaning 1 tablespoon of chia seeds can absorb 12 tablespoons of water, creating a gel-like substance. A study conducted at the University of Toronto and published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2017 examined exactly what happens when diabetics consume chia seeds before meals. 23 participants with poorly controlled type 2 diabetes consumed chia seed gel 30 minutes before their largest meal of the day for 12 weeks. The chia group experienced a 42% reduction in post-meal blood sugar spikes compared to the control group. The mechanism involves viscosity. That gel created by hydrated chia seeds coats your intestinal wall, creating a physical barrier between the glucose in your food and the absorption points in your intestine. Glucose has to diffuse through this viscous barrier to reach your bloodstream. Instead of flooding in within 15 minutes like it normally would, causing that sharp spike that triggers excessive insulin release, the glucose trickles in gradually over 90 minutes. Your pancreas can keep pace. No spike, no corresponding insulin surge, no subsequent crash that leaves you exhausted and craving more carbohydrates 2 hours later. This is the exact mechanism that acarbose, a prescription alpha-glucosidase inhibitor, attempts to replicate pharmacologically. Acarbose costs approximately $150 monthly and causes significant gastrointestinal side effects, including gas and bloating in up to 45% of users. Chia seeds cost approximately $6 for a 1-pound bag containing roughly 40 servings and produce minimal digestive discomfort when consumption starts gradually and water intake remains adequate. Let me tell you about Patricia, because her story shows what happens when someone discovers chia seeds after years of struggling with post-meal glucose spikes. Patricia was 69, a retired librarian from Oregon. She loved reading, crossword puzzles, keeping her mind sharp. She had been managing type 2 diabetes for 8 years, taking metformin and watching her diet carefully. But despite her efforts, her blood sugar after meals would spike to 220, 240, sometimes higher. She would feel shaky and disoriented, that unpleasant rush, followed by the inevitable crash. Her doctor suggested adding Januvia, another medication, another $150 monthly. Patricia started researching alternatives. She found the University of Toronto study. She started consuming 2 tablespoons of chia seeds mixed into water 30 minutes before lunch, her largest meal. She did this consistently for 10 weeks. Her post-meal glucose readings dropped from the 200 range to 130, 140. The spikes flattened. The crashes stopped. She had stable energy through the afternoon. She was not tired after eating. She was not craving sweets 2 hours later. Her doctor reviewed her continuous glucose monitor data and expressed genuine surprise at the improvement. Patricia asked if he had ever heard about chia seed viscosity and glucose diffusion rates. He admitted it sounded familiar from nutrition lectures in medical school, but he had never thought to recommend it clinically. There is no continuing medical education course sponsored by pharmaceutical companies teaching doctors about chia seed gel formation and intestinal glucose barriers. That information lives in research papers and stays there. Drop a comment right now saying, "I deserve complete information," if you believe healthcare should include evidence-based nutritional interventions alongside pharmaceutical options. Your comment tells YouTube that seniors are demanding access to the full scope of metabolic science, not just the fraction that generates drug company profits. Number 4 is apple cider vinegar, and the timing of consumption makes the difference between modest effects and dramatic results. A study published in Diabetes Care in 2007, one of the most prestigious diabetes journals in the world, found that consuming apple cider vinegar before a high-carbohydrate meal reduced post-meal blood sugar by an average of 34% in insulin-resistant participants. 34% from 2 tablespoons of vinegar. The mechanism involves acetic acid's effect on gastric emptying and muscle glucose uptake. Acetic acid slows the rate at which your stomach releases food into your small intestine. This delayed gastric emptying means glucose absorption happens more gradually, but the acetic acid also does something at the muscular level. It increases glucose uptake into skeletal muscle through an insulin-independent pathway, meaning your muscles pull glucose from your bloodstream without requiring insulin signaling. For type 2 diabetics with insulin resistance, this insulin-independent pathway becomes critically important. Your body can move glucose out of your blood and into your muscle cells even when insulin signaling is impaired. Research from Arizona State University found that consuming vinegar at bedtime reduced fasting glucose the following morning by 4 to 6% in people with type 2 diabetes. The protocol involves 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar diluted in 8 ounces of water, consumed 15 to 20 minutes before meals, particularly before the highest carbohydrate meal of the day. Store-brand apple cider vinegar costs approximately $3 for a 32-ounce bottle, providing 32 servings. Compare that to what pharmaceutical companies charge for their glucose management solutions. But apple cider vinegar cannot be patented. It has been used in traditional medicine for thousands of years. There is no intellectual property protection that allows a company to charge premium prices, so it receives no marketing, no physician education, no prominent placement in diabetes management guidelines. Number 3 is okra, and what it does to your digestive system represents one of the most underappreciated mechanisms in blood sugar management. Okra contains a type of soluble fiber that creates an intensely viscous gel, even more so than chia seeds. A 2011 study published in the Journal of Pharmacy and Bioallied Sciences examined okra's effect on blood glucose in diabetic rats, then confirmed the findings in a small human trial. Diabetic participants who consumed okra water, made by soaking sliced okra pods in water overnight, showed glucose reductions of 21 to 28% compared to baseline measurements. The mechanism involves the mucilaginous polysaccharide matrix that okra produces. This gel not only slows glucose absorption like chia seeds, but also inhibits alpha-amylase and alpha-glucosidase, the enzymes responsible for breaking down complex carbohydrates into simple sugars. If those enzymes cannot break down starches efficiently, glucose release from food slows dramatically. But okra does something additional that researchers at India's Defense Institute of Physiology and Allied Sciences discovered. The gel stimulates GLP-1 secretion from intestinal L cells. GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, is the hormone that Ozempic and Trulicity mimic pharmacologically. These medications cost $1,000 to $1,300 monthly and work by activating GLP-1 receptors to improve insulin secretion and reduce appetite. Okra stimulates your body's natural GLP-1 production through the interaction between its soluble fiber and specialized cells deep in your small intestine. You get GLP-1 receptor activation without injections, without nausea, without the risk of thyroid tumors listed in the pharmaceutical warnings. Fresh okra costs approximately $2 per pound. The protocol involves eating okra 3 to 4 times weekly, either cooked or as okra water prepared by soaking sliced pods overnight. But there is no pharmaceutical company sales force educating physicians about okra's GLP-1 stimulating properties. That information stays confined to research institutions studying plant-based alternatives to expensive biologics. Number 2 is fenugreek seeds, and the compound responsible for their glucose-lowering effects has been studied since 1988. A meta-analysis published in the International Journal for Vitamin and Nutrition Research in 2016 examined 10 clinical trials involving 543 diabetic participants. Fenugreek supplementation reduced fasting blood glucose by an average of 26.4 milligrams per deciliter and reduced A1C by 0.7%. Those reductions match what endocrinologists celebrate when achieved through medication titration. The active compound is called 4-hydroxyisoleucine, an amino acid that stimulates insulin secretion only in the presence of elevated glucose. This glucose-dependent mechanism means fenugreek does not cause hypoglycemia the way sulfonylurea medications can. Your pancreas releases insulin when blood sugar is high, but does not over-release when blood sugar is normal, preventing dangerous low blood sugar episodes. Research from the Department of Biochemistry at Rajiv Gandhi University in India found that 4-hydroxyisoleucine also improves insulin receptor signaling, addressing insulin resistance at the cellular level. Additionally, fenugreek contains soluble fiber that slows carbohydrate absorption and galactomannan that reduces cholesterol synthesis in the liver, providing cardiovascular benefits particularly relevant for diabetic seniors at elevated heart disease risk. And now we arrive at number 1, the food that lowers blood sugar faster than anything else on this list. The food with the most extensive research backing, the most dramatic glucose reductions, and the most inexplicable absence from standard diabetes education: resistant starch from cooked and cooled potatoes. Here is why this sits at number 1. A 2019 study, published in Nutrients, a peer-reviewed open-access journal, examined the effect of resistant starch on glucose metabolism in type 2 diabetics. The intervention group consumed 30 grams of resistant starch daily for 8 weeks. Post-meal glucose spikes decreased by 47%. 47%. Fasting insulin levels dropped by 31%. A1C values improved by 0.9%. Those numbers rival pharmaceutical interventions. Now, let me explain exactly why this happens at the molecular level, because this mechanism represents one of the most elegant examples of how food preparation alters metabolic response. When you cook a potato, the heat breaks down the cell walls and gelatinizes the starch, making it easy to digest. But when you cool that cooked potato, something remarkable occurs called retrogradation. The amylose chains, one of 2 types of starch molecules in potatoes, recrystallize into a structure that human digestive enzymes cannot easily break down. This resistant starch passes through your small intestine largely intact. In your colon, beneficial bacteria ferment this resistant starch, producing short-chain fatty acids, particularly butyrate, propionate, and acetate. These short-chain fatty acids do several things simultaneously. First, they improve insulin sensitivity by reducing inflammation in adipose tissue and enhancing glucose uptake in muscle cells. Second, they stimulate GLP-1 secretion from colonic L cells, improving insulin response and reducing appetite. Third, they reduce hepatic glucose production through mechanisms involving fatty acid receptors. Fourth, they improve the integrity of your intestinal barrier, reducing metabolic endotoxemia that drives systemic inflammation and insulin resistance. The research from researchers at the University of Minnesota and Colorado State University confirmed that resistant starch type 3, the form created by cooking and cooling, produces the most significant metabolic benefits for glucose control. The protocol is simple: cook potatoes using any method. Let them cool completely in the refrigerator overnight. Consume them cold or reheated to a temperature below 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Higher temperatures begin to reverse the retrogradation process. The optimal timing is lunch or early afternoon, never dinner, because the fermentation process takes several hours and can disrupt sleep if timed too late. One medium potato prepared this way costs approximately 50 cents and provides 12 to 15 grams of resistant starch. Now here is what makes this information suppression so frustrating. The resistant starch research has been published continuously since the 1984 work by Hans Englist at the University of Cambridge, defining resistant starch categories. 40 years of research, thousands of studies, documented mechanisms, proven efficacy, published in mainstream journals that every endocrinologist has access to. And yet, how many seniors managing type 2 diabetes have ever had their physician explain retrogradation, short-chain fatty acid production, colonic GLP-1 secretion, or the specific protocol for preparing resistant starch? The number is close to 0, not because doctors are evil, not because they want their patients to suffer, but because the system is not designed to educate physicians about unpatentable food preparation techniques. Medical education focuses on pharmaceutical solutions. Continuing education is sponsored by companies selling drugs. Practice guidelines are written by panels with pharmaceutical industry ties. And resistant starch just does not fit into that ecosystem. There is no sales representative bringing resistant starch samples to endocrinology offices. There is no marketing budget creating awareness campaigns. There is no profit margin supporting research and education initiatives. So, the knowledge stays trapped in academic journals, while millions of seniors spend billions on medications addressing the same metabolic dysfunctions that resistant starch addresses through simple food preparation. Here is your action protocol. Step 1. Cook a batch of potatoes today. Any variety works, but higher starch potatoes like russets produce more resistant starch. Step 2. Refrigerate those potatoes overnight, at least 12 hours. Step 3. Consume one medium potato daily at lunch, either cold in a salad or reheated gently, always after eating your protein and vegetables first. Step 4. Add 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed to your breakfast. Mix it into yogurt, oatmeal, or a smoothie. Step 5. Consume 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar diluted in water 15 minutes before your largest meal of the day. Step 6. Incorporate chia seeds 3 to 4 times weekly, 2 tablespoons mixed with water 30 minutes before meals. Step 7. Add Ceylon cinnamon to your morning coffee, or sprinkle it on your food, aiming for half a teaspoon daily. This is not going to transform your numbers overnight. The clinical trials showed meaningful improvements appearing between 4 and 8 weeks of consistent implementation. That timeline reflects your body gradually rebuilding insulin sensitivity, improving receptor function, and establishing beneficial bacterial populations that ferment resistant starch effectively. Gradual change is sustainable change. Sudden dramatic shifts often prove temporary. You are rebuilding metabolic function at the cellular level. Now I need your help making sure other seniors find this information. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Ring the notification bell so you see every video the moment it goes live. Drop a comment sharing which of these 7 foods you are going to start with. Your engagement tells YouTube this matters, that seniors deserve access to complete evidence-based information about glucose management, not just the pharmaceutical slice that generates corporate revenue. Share this with your spouse, your friends from church, anyone over 60 managing blood sugar who deserves to know about resistant starch formation, GLP-1 stimulation from okra, insulin-independent glucose uptake from vinegar, all the mechanisms their doctor never explained during those rushed appointments focused on prescription refills. But this only covers what to eat. There is an entire other side to blood sugar management that most seniors never learn about. What you are eating for breakfast might be spiking your glucose higher than dessert, and I am not talking about obvious culprits like donuts or pastries. I made a video exposing the 7 breakfast foods that destroy blood sugar control, and number 1 on that list is something millions of seniors eat every single morning thinking it is healthy. Watch that video next. Click the link on your screen right now or find it in the description below. Your metabolic health depends on knowing what to avoid just as much as knowing what to consume.